Yes, the Standing Committee on Appropriations has voiced its concerns about the manner in which the transfer of funds between different parts of government budgets are approved by National Treasury for government departments. Committee Chair Mmusi Maimane has noted that several virements exceed the legislated 8% threshold of the proposed program by the executive. He says in accordance with legislative requirements, it's imperative for Parliament to formally pass these and assert its oversight authority. Mmusi Maimane joins us now. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, you've expressed a number of concerns as you make a call for Parliament to assert its authority over the executive. Talk to us about these challenges.
Good evening, and good evening to fellow South Africans. Parliament is the place upon which the people of this country's wishes, interests are expressed. At the end of the day, South Africans are only represented in Parliament. They're not represented in the executive. They don't attend cabinet lekhotlas. They, like as we are having tomorrow in a public hearing, South Africans come and make their views heard. And therefore, when a budget is tabled by the minister, only Parliament then can pass it and make it into law. Secondly, that when there are in-year movements within a budget, if those exceed 8%, because once you've given the permission for a budget to be spent a particular way, you can't just, once that bill has been passed, you can go ahead and adjust it by over 8%. That is not inconsistent with the Money Bills Act. So that you can't take money from one program and make it into another, because that would ultimately, at the end of the day, tell South Africans that if their program was to fight TB and you decided you'd move money from TB and do something else, that is away from what the people's wish is and what was voted for. Therefore, we are saying we need to come back to a place where it is common understanding that when the minister tables, he tables in essence a proposed budget. And Parliament must reassert its authority to say, this is our budget, this is the people's budget, so that when we vote it and put it into law, it gives expression to the interests of the people of this country.
So if you want Parliament to reassert its authority, where are the loopholes? Is Parliament not given enough time? What are some of the reasons why these approvals are happening in the manner that they are?
Well, in the first instance, we've had a historic practice in the last 30 years where effectively Parliament has just simply rubber-stamped the budget process, and now we're starting to say, how does the law work and how do we give full exercise to the law? Secondly, the Money Bills Act itself has given very stringent timelines as to how it can pass, and so that's a conversation I've been engaged with the Minister, with Parliament, to say, give Parliament and the people enough time to go through. The third thing is, I think because Parliament has relied also on a simple majoritarianism where one party has been dominant, now suddenly there's an opportunity for all of us as South Africans to be able to go, how do we engage on the budget and give feedback? This is not to suggest that what the executive tables is wrong or illegal or whatever. It is to say to itself that Parliament has a duty to give not only oversight, accountability into that, but also to make its own proposals into the budget that must be considered.
So what happens if Parliament is not given the sufficient time and the substantive reasons to now interrogate the approvals and just question the rationality of the decisions taken by the National Treasury? In which areas are we beginning to see the effects of such decisions in everyday society?
Yeah, well, for example, there's a special appropriation that's been put forward now, and in certain aspects, it gives a significant increase to the presidency so that the cabinet can be a bloated cabinet, as you see. It's over 3 billion rands. What that means for ordinary South Africans is that that is money being taken away from frontline services, education, healthcare, security. We have already, when you look at the next 3 years, you will start to see that education in real terms is beginning to be underfunded. You're starting to see the fact that policing might have experienced only a marginal increase of 0.1% or so in the medium term, which means that we're not going to increase the number of police that we need in order to be able to better secure people. The budgeting around the national health insurance, these are policy programs that already, when you start to exchange those with cabinet, or even, for example, the deployment of troops to the DRC as an issue. You're sending the defense force elsewhere, whereas the people of South Africa are feeling unsafe or they need those resources here. So these are real-life trade-offs that are beginning to take place. And that's why I keep urging that Parliament must reassert its own space and give the views of the people going forward.
What will it take to get there? I mean, what are the issues that you're trying to navigate around to get Parliament to that point?
Well, it's to capacitate the legislative process on the Money Bills Act to make sure that it gives Parliament more time as a start. That is a process that we are undertaking. Secondly, is to make sure that we give effect to public hearings. So there's a process upon which now we've got one tomorrow and obviously on the 29th of November where people can come through and do so. And then when budget votes take place, I do think we need to give due considerations in this regard. This is not to create an enemy of the executive. It is about ensuring that accountability is effected and that ultimately in our engagement, even with the Minister of Finance, that he can't just simply say with Treasury, here's the decisions we've made, you best rubber stamp them. But ultimately, it be a process where he comes and makes those proposals and that Parliament does its own job. So that work is already starting to happen, and we are hoping that we'll find a better collaboration that ultimately gives expression to the people's interests.
Very well. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. The Standing Committee on Appropriations Committee Chair, Mmusi Maimane.